What's up, YouTube? Thanks for clicking on this video and joining us for the live stream. We'd love for you to like and subscribe if you haven't already as you watch us talk about win totals on this episode. Let's podcast. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host. It is technically Wednesday, April 6th, as we record this on YouTube. Live on YouTube, 1 p.m. every single day, 1 p.m. Eastern, every single day for the rest of eternity. You can come join us. If you're joining us now, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the alert button. You'll know when we go live. If we have emergency podcasts, of course, we'll have tons of draft content continuing to come your way. But today we're going to do win totals with Tyler Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, Will? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I was watching. So, and if you're listening to the podcast, it's Thursday, April 7th. Hello, friends. The Masters are underway. Oh, it's the most wonderful time of the year, Sully.
Great. It's gonna be a good weekend.
We're like hurtling towards vacation. We got the Masters on. Carolina just got daggered in the title game. Oh, man, you hate to see it. I'm assuming, I would never, talk smack to like a figure of authority in the company about Carolina losing in the title game. But I probably would. But if somebody, if any of my bosses happen to hear the podcast and happen to hear me continuing to mention that Carolina lost in the national championship game in heartbreaking and gut-wrenching fashion, like borderline 28-3 fashion, like the Patriots over the Falcons, like 15 point lead at halftime in the national championship game, and you lose. That is absolutely gut-wrenching. Anyway, that's long in the past. The Masters are here. We can quit talking about Carolina losing in the title game. But while we're talking about the tournament, shout out to Sean Quinlan for winning the Pick Six Podcast bracket, and taking home the $100 Paramount Plus gift card. Congratulations. I would bet, Sully, that I finished dead last because my picks were terrible. My bracket was terrible.
Yeah, mine did not do particularly well at all. I think I was somewhat all right for like a minute, and then it went all to shambles.
My brother-in-law, Jay, had my wife's brother had Carolina and Kansas in the finals.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going to hang out with him this weekend in Asheville.
I'm sure you won't hear about that at all.
No, he's not a Carolina fan. I'll happily let him buy me beers. Should probably tell Debo that I'm leaving on Friday. Anyway, let's talk some win totals. You have a story up on CBSSports.com where you break down the best value win totals after they were released by Caesars. And it's worth noting that these win totals are probably going to fluctuate pretty wildly between now and have they announced the schedule release? Are they going to do it after the draft again?
It's probably after the draft, I would assume.
Super annoying.
They're gonna find that dead zone after the draft, probably right around OTAs and minicamp, and do something there. Probably.
It's super annoying. Like you know what they did? They pushed it back because of COVID, and then they were like, "Oh my God, we're just going to push this back permanently because we get to see it's May 13th, 2021 was when they released it last time." In other words, it's okay. All the draft hype has died down. Let's steal another 2 weeks of everyone else's time by releasing the schedule. It is what it is. Now we've got Dominic in the chat says it's May 10th schedule release. There you go.
There you go. Early birthday gift.
Yeah, that's your birthday.
May 11th.
May 11th. There you go. Yeah.
Very exciting.
Look, the NFL has, it used to be they would just send out like an email. It's like, here's the schedule. Then it became a 3-hour schedule show. And anyway, the whole thing is kind of annoying, but that's okay. I'm seeing on NFL.com that they have not announced a date yet for the release, but it's likely to be a few weeks after the NFL draft.
Yeah. They like we said, it's a primetime event now. They'll put it, on NFL Network. They'll have a whole show, and
they do it's either a Wednesday or Thursday, or Tuesday or Wednesday. They don't want to do. It's not like a Friday or anything like that. So it's probably Tuesday or Wednesday, a couple weeks after the draft. But the point being is that when the schedule comes out, And when players are drafted, and maybe not as much in this class because there's not an impact quarterback who would change a win total. There's, if the Giants draft Evan Neal and Kyle Hamilton, you could see maybe their total tick up half a game just because it feels like two impact guys at positions they need. So like we'll see some changes when it comes to that. But by and large, I like these numbers are going to move because of the
they're
schedule.
of course they're going to fluctuate, and you also have to throw in the fact that I know we've seen already like every trade imaginable this offseason, but that the draft is another opportunity where player movement is going to happen, not just people being drafted, but there could be trades somewhere around the league that could shake things up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about them coming out this early is that Caesars got them out. You can bet on them at Caesars. Everybody wants to be first to market because you're going to get action. People are going to talk. It's like, if you're the book that doesn't have the win totals out, nobody's referencing your sports book.
Yeah.
So there you go. All right, let's talk about some of the ones with our best bets, our early values, the ones that we like. I'll let you go first, Sully, because you're the guest. Somehow stuck in perpetuity joining this podcast.
Happy to be
you get out of a shift or something. Like, do you at least ask?
Yeah, no, I am ducking out like an hour early today, so I'm all right.
There we go.
I'm doing all right. So it's not too bad. I like it, but going for this, I had two teams mentioned in the draft and really in the piece, and it's really to highlight all of them. It's one of those like, here are all the win totals. Here's a couple of value plays, and I have a few more that I've kind of marinated on over the course of the week since it's come out, and we'll talk about all of them. But the two that I mentioned in the piece are the Cowboys over their 10.5 win total and the Jets under their 5.5 win total. With Dallas, for me, I think a lot of people are kind of fading them a little bit. I've kind of listened and read over the course of the week that Dallas might be one of those teams that goes under their win total, but I don't necessarily see it that way. They play the NFC North and the AFC South this year. They play in an NFC East where you're going to get multiple wins against the Giants and the Washington Commanders, in my opinion. You swept them last year, home and away. So you could conceivably see them, 5, if they lose one to Philadelphia, 5-6 wins if they're able to sweep it again. And you're talking about facing an AFC South that includes the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Houston Texans, and then an NFC South that also is gotten worse over the last few years when you're talking about obviously Detroit and Chicago. Green Bay's gotten worse, losing Devontae Adams. For me, the opponents that they're set to face, you could conceivably see them in double-digit wins and well over that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. I think
And the last I checked, I thought it was plus money too. It's like plus 100. Again, you're.
Let me double check. Hold
on. I'm pretty sure that's where it was.
It is annoying that the schedule isn't out though, because it's like,
well, it changes everything too. I mean, especially with a couple of these teams that we're going to be talking about here, a lot of them play Cleveland, and we don't know what the situation is going to be with Deshaun Watson. And if you're getting Cleveland in the first 6 weeks, well, that's a lot different than when you're getting Cleveland later in the year where they're probably going to have Deshaun Watson. So you don't necessarily know.
That's a great point. I mean, like if you have the Browns in like week 17, let's say week 15, like you feel pretty good that you're going to get Deshaun Watson in week 15. Now, if he's suspended for the whole season, and also that's why if I think Caesars don't they have Cleveland up?
Yeah, I believe it was. I can pull it up real quick.
I think they have it's down now,
or at least in the piece that I had. Let me see.
So we take a bunch of these down. I know my Control F is just isn't working. There we go. I think the Browns
they were 9.5.
Yeah, they were not,
when it first opened.
I think what happened is they opened it at 9.5 and it got absolutely peppered. And they're like, oh crap. Yeah, wait, Deshaun Watson, maybe we should keep this down. So yeah, that's certainly a situation that warrants monitoring. Let me look at my first best bet. I gotta look at their opponents. Because I mean, like usually when I do I've always done the win totals article. I did it for a long time for .com, and you would go through and check the schedule, and I would run through and be like win loss, like you run through and do the schedule yourself.
Yeah.
Which is you can't do that without knowing my first best bet does not play the Browns, but the Packers.
It's just something you have to factor in.
Yeah, absolutely. The Packers. You mentioned no Devontae Adams. Yes, that is a problem for the Green Bay Packers. Do I care? I don't. Am I asking myself random questions like the guy from Seinfeld? You bet I am. Kerry Yules, by the way, played that guy, I believe. The Packers still have Aaron Rodgers. Their win total is set at 11. Juice to the over minus 120. The under is plus 100. That's a ton of games. 11 is a lot of games. But in Matt LaFleur's 3 seasons with the Packers, they have won 13 games, and 13 games. That's very good. Devontae Adams matters. I don't think he matters to the point that I wouldn't believe the Packers would win. Like, I think that, so if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy and they add a receiver in the draft, and that receiver is above average, even with the guys they have on their roster, and I think it's sort of being underplayed that Aaron Jones, with the way that, with the way that they set up in terms of their offense, having Aaron Jones and having AJ Dillon, I think it's entirely feasible that you could line up Aaron Jones in the slot like 60% of the time for the entire season and just turn him into basically like a short yardage receiver. You can motion him into the backfield. Dillon can be your primary back, and like, I mean, basically you can take some of the burden off the wide receivers by incorporating Aaron Jones more into the offense, especially.
Right. You're talking about having him in some sort of a Ty Montgomery type role in that offense.
Or Deebo Samuel style,
right.
like a more running back Deebo Samuel version. Exactly. And so if you do that and you're a run heavy team and your defense is average to above average, which I think it should be. I mean, I know they lost, Zadarius Smith, but they still have plenty of guys on defense. You got Devondre Campbell, Rashawn Gary's taking big steps forward. Jair Alexander looks like one of the premier corners in football. So this is a team that, like, you lose Devontae Adams, and that's a big headline thing. And it matters, just like the Chiefs losing Tyreek Hill. Like, it matters. But I don't think that we should write off the Packers for being an elite team just because you lose Adams. They'll find ways to produce on offense. Aaron Rodgers' track record without Devontae Adams over the last 2 or 3 years is like unreal. He plays better without Adams. Maybe you can make the case he spreads it around more. Whatever the case may be, this division is set up so well for the Packers to dominate. The Vikings have a first-year head coach, a first-year GM. Their defense looks like it's just not going to be it, especially with Mike Zimmer gone. Will they score a ton of points? Yeah, of course, because you have Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook. I mean, they're loaded. Adam Thielen. They're loaded on offense, but I don't think they're stopping the Packers once on defense. The Lions are still not there, and the Bears look like they're tearing everything down. I would think at minimum the Packers win 5 division games. Does that seem fair?
Yeah, and to kind of further off that point, I know Sharp Football does their kind of strength of schedule, and they total it through the wins odds. They kind of formulate it that way, and they have the 13th easiest schedule in the NFL next year in the Packers. So that's, your top 10. That's pretty, just outside the top 10. That's pretty good for Green Bay, and I'm with you too. Obviously the Adams factor is something to take note of, but as we said to start the podcast too, there's still plenty of time for roster construction between now and the start of the season. Yeah. Obviously, the NFL draft hasn't even happened yet. We could still see some movement.
What if they traded for DK Metcalf?
Yep.
Like they give up.
Or you're just talking about drafting like Olave or somebody along those lines at the draft.
Absolutely. Also, so let's say I'm going to give them 5 wins in the division. And if you really want to be conservative, you can say 4. I'm going to go 5. They also have the Jets and the Giants at Lambeau Field. I feel okay saying that they will win those 2 games.
Yep.
They could lose one, sure, but I don't think that that's likely. They also get the Pats at Lambeau Field. I mean, I really hate to suggest that the Patriots are, I don't want to call them a free win.
It's close though.
But that Pats team going to Lambeau.
That's Green Bay's clearly favored.
At least a touchdown favorite in that game.
Yeah, right? Clearly.
So that's 8 right there. And so you need to figure out a way to win 4 of at Washington, which Green Bay will be favored in that game. Dallas at Lambeau. I can't pronounce it today. That's that's going to be a close spread. I would think that Green Bay comes out ahead on that, and the Mike McCarthy, like Aaron Rodgers against Mike McCarthy's team in Lambeau Field, little bit of double revenge factor. I'm going to give Aaron Rodgers the edge there. At Miami, at Philly, at Bills, Titans, Rams at home, and at Buccaneers. Now, those are not all easy games by any stretch of the imagination, but you have to win 4 of those. And, we're talking contenders, right? In the Cowboys, the Titans, and the Rams, but they're all at home. Debo, would you expect that the Eagles or the Packers win the game in Lincoln at Lincoln Financial Field?
Packers, but
yeah,
past couple of meetings have gone pretty well for the Eagles.
I'm not suggesting the Eagles can't win, but yeah, I mean, I think it's fair. Like, it's fair to say that this line should be 11.5, maybe 12, with that division, with Aaron, 2-time MVP, a lot of stability at the coaching spot. I love the Packers over at 11, and I think it will close closer to 12.
Yeah, no, that's again when you're talking about when you have one of the back-to-back MVP.
Sorry, somebody pointed out in the chat one of these games is in London, Germany. No, the Bucs are in Germany.
Buccaneers are in Germany. It's either Mexico or no, I think Arizona's in Mexico. But yes, you get an international game. So you're throwing that into the mix as well, which is another thing to point out here as well. Obviously we're talking about bye weeks and the schedule and all that. These international games could throw a wrench into things as well. If you're playing these primetime games, then all of a sudden going, in an entirely different country, what's that look like on the back end? All of that certainly factors into this as well.
Yeah, and I wonder. I guess actually, the Packers are going to lose one home game then, I would think, right, for the international trip.
Possibly.
Yeah, they can't take. Yeah. If the Packers are the designated team that's going,
yes,
yes,
yes.
Home game. I would bet that it is one of Tennessee, LA, or Dallas, because it does feel like, and the sort of the buzz I've heard is that the NFL wants to really juice up these international games. Like they're sending the Bucs to Germany and the Packers to London. Like they're not going to say, I mean, maybe it could be a division game that's not as spicy, but like if they're going to send Aaron Rodgers and the Packers to London, like I think they'll want to send another big team over there. And I guess that technically stinks for the Packers because they'll lose the home field advantage against a good team, but I digress. Anyway, we're showing 11.5 on your chart. I think it's 11, isn't it?
Yeah, it might have changed since then. But when it opened, 11, it was probably
11 on Caesars. Anyway, I like the over on that one. What's your next one?
And then, like I said earlier, the under with the Jets at 5.5. It's just a matter of the schedule. When you're talking about difficulty and strength of schedule, they have the second hardest schedule in the NFL next year, again, according to Sharp Football Analysis. And you just go down the list here. I see maybe 3 winnable games at home: Jaguars, Bears, and Lions. But their other home opponents include the Bengals, the Ravens, then the Bills, Dolphins, Patriots. Maybe they clip one against the Patriots or the Dolphins, but I don't see them winning much more than that. And when you talk about their road schedule, it's the Browns, Steelers, Broncos, Packers, Seahawks, Vikings. That's just a gauntlet for this team that's still developing. And, this is going to be an interesting, tough. They kind of got a tough draw here too, because obviously your division opponents that you're playing, that's going to be set for the year. But typically you're supposed to play the fourth, but wherever you place in the division, you'll play other teams as well. They finished 4th in the AFC, so do the Denver Broncos, but they are not a 4th place, last place finisher this year, going from 21 to 22 with Russell Wilson now. So you're just talking about, arguably another first place caliber team coming in and playing you. And to me, that's just a recipe for this team to not produce that many wins. I don't see them getting more than 4 or 5 at the most.
Yeah. I mean, this is the other thing if you're banking on, and by the way, if I'm taking the Jets under, I'm actually waiting until after the draft to do it because one, they've been linked to multiple high profile wide receivers. They tried to trade for Tyreek Hill. There's a bunk DK Metcalf rumor that got that from Howard Eskin, which as Debo will tell you is truly one of the actually, is he reliable, Debo Eskin, or is he just, I mean, he's a he's a pontificate. He's a blowhard for sure.
What was the rumor again? Because he is
The rumor was offer number 10 for DK Metcalf.
Which, by the way, the Seahawks would never do. And you know why the Seahawks would never do that? Because that was their draft pick. You're not going to give somebody number 10 for Jamal Adams and then turn around and give them and then take 10 back for DK Metcalf. Like,
I would believe some things if it was Eagles related. This just like two random teams. No.
Well, for me too, wasn't it that the Jets didn't want to trade a first-round pick for Tyreek Hill, and then all of a sudden they want to do it for DK Metcalf? I understand he's old, he's younger, and all that, but it just seems like a drastic change in their draft philosophy if that's what they were doing.
Yeah, like all of a sudden you have to give DK Metcalf more than you were going to give Tyreek Hill. But agreed. The Jets are at Cleveland, TBD, like that. And again,
and so that's again, this is where I was talking about that maybe comes into play if all of a sudden you're playing them in weeks 1 through 6. That looks a little bit different when you're playing Jacoby Brissett. But anything beyond that, again, assuming that Deshaun Watson gets some sort of like 6-game suspension or something along those lines.
I think that's 6. I think 6. The way to operate is assuming that he's going to be gone for 6 games.
Yeah,
and we don't know what the NFL will do. They could do anything, but just from a trying to plan out. And so, I guess you would. I think you would. So the Jets have 2 first-round picks, which means they're going to add 2 impact guys at 4 and 10. I would bet that this ticks up to 6, potentially. And then what I would do if I was betting the Jets on Caesars, I would hope that it goes up half a game after the draft, and then I would wait and bet it on the night the schedule is released. Although maybe they'll take these down. I mean, we'll have to see how that. But like, I would want to know where that Cleveland game is on the schedule. Like, if they open with the Browns, you feel like there's no chance Deshaun Watson's playing. Although the NFL has said this investigation could go through the start of the 2022 season, which is kind of crazy to think.
Right. It could follow a Tom Brady Deflategate type of route where he was suspended the following year. He played a whole season while this whole thing was going on, and then he served that suspension. So yeah, it could be a moot point with everything with Deshaun Watson in terms of these win totals and when you're seeing him in the schedule and all that. There is precedent for that for sure, but it is something that you at least should kind of keep somewhat of an eye on there. But yes, I totally agree with you. I think that you let things kind of play out with New York for the NFL draft and you kind of see where things go. But ultimately, you're playing the Bills twice. You're playing an improved Dolphins team twice. You're playing a Patriots team
that hate the belt. Like Belichick might not win 12 games, but he's going to beat the crap out of the Jets twice each year.
There's just a lot of venom there from New England side. So yeah, absolutely. It's just going to be a tough division to go through. And then you have just a gauntlet on the road in terms of who you're playing there as well. So, and yes, you do have 3 easy games that I could see you winning at home. It was the let me see. It was
Jaguars at home.
Jaguars, Bears, and Lions. You'll be in those games. Like that makes, I could see you getting 3 wins there. But ultimately, beyond that, it's going to be a surprise here and there.
And even I don't think that the Bears and Lions are free wins either. Like
no,
like the Bears. I mean, the Jets probably have a better roster at this point than the Bears.
I mean, I've liked what they've done so far this offseason. This isn't a let's dump all over the New York Jets type of podcast, but I've liked what they've done so far. But they're a rebuilding team. They're a second-year quarterback, second-year head coach. They're doing the right things, but it's not necessarily their time yet, so to speak.
Someone in the chat pointed out that Watson has already sat out for a year, and that is true technically, but he didn't actually sit out for a year. He was active and he was getting paid, and the Texans just simply didn't play him. So I don't think that the NFL will consider that quote unquote time served. Which
I mean, the Texans, he could have theoretically played all last season. He could have been their quarterback
for all 17 games.
Yeah, he could have played.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I will. What was I gonna? Oh yeah, I will. My next one, and I know this is like sort of. It probably looks like it's like it looks like I'm being a donkey by picking these high win totals and going over. But I think that what's happened is the odds makers have over adjusted to some large offseason wide receiver trades and or free agency action. And the Chiefs are currently, are they 11 and a half roll? They are 10 and a half. Their over under is 10 and a half. Minus 130 to the over. You're telling me that Andy Reid is getting sub 11 wins on his total in a 17-game season with Patrick Mahomes just because like Russell Wilson and Khalil Mack got traded in the division? Come on, man. Like what and like Devontae Adams, like I get it. Impact guys. Russ makes a huge difference for the Broncos. You can see it. They're at a 10 or 10.5 right now. Devontae Adams makes a huge impact for the Raiders. And I think the Khalil Mack trade is kind of overrated, to be perfectly honest. The idea that the Chiefs are somehow going to not be good is just outrageous. Here are their non-division games: at Arizona. We'll see what's happening with Kyler. At Houston, that's a freebie. At Indy is actually a lot tougher now with the Matt Ryan trade. Jacksonville at home, Tennessee at home, LA at home, Seattle at home, at San Fran, at Cincy, Bills at home, at Tampa Bay. Are there some hard games on there? Yes, of course there are. Could the Chiefs be a 10-6 team? I don't think so. Or 10-7 team. Do you think the Chiefs are going 10-7? Come on. What are we talking about here?
No, I mean, I think that there is the momentum off of a sluggish start to begin last season. The Tyreek Hill trade, moving on from Tyrann Mathieu, I think is just one of those symbolic things. I think people feel like they are resetting a little bit. And that's probably why this number is a little bit lower than you might think, because they might be dragging it down a little bit, or maybe, that's probably how I see the sports books and people kind of betting the under on that, is that they might be going through something of a transition year as they kind of figure out their new identity, and then they come back and kind of whatever their new iteration is going to be.
Yeah. I mean, look, this number will not close at 10.5.
No.
People will come to the obvious conclusion that the Chiefs are still good. And this number will be 11 or 11.5, I think. And of course, the schedule definitely matters when we talk.
But again, it is a tougher division now. It's not like they're the prime Patriots in the AFC East all those years. It's a much tougher. You got Russell Wilson in there now. You do have a more lethal Raiders team with Devontae Adams and Josh McDaniels there now, a competent head coach leading that organization. And obviously you don't know how high Justin Herbert's going to ascend either as he continues to develop in year 3. So it's not a cakewalk of a division. We just view them as the best team in it right now, right?
Yeah. It's a very difficult division. Yeah. But I mean, like the Chiefs are plus money to win the division. Like they win the division and go, Andy Reid is going over his win total every single season except for last year when he was under by a half a game. It's a tough division, but you can easily find flaws in the other teams. I'm absolutely buying low on the Kansas City Chiefs, and 10.5 it's just to 130. I don't know. I think they'll move it up. Instead of just jacking up cranking up the juice is probably a better way to say that. Instead of boosting the juice to like 190 or something like that, I think they'll probably just move it up to 11. And maybe could see 11.5. So I like that, especially at this point of the offseason. All right, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, more win totals. And we're back. I learned that trick from Rick Gaiman, who I watched on the First Cut podcast. You should be subscribing to the First Cut podcast. It is great content. This week is the week to be listening to the First Cut podcast. I watched the DFS preview, and Rick is a excellent podcast host. And you could tell it pained him to do a fake imaginary break in the middle of a YouTube show that you do for audio purposes. Just like it just feels a little weird. Anywho, why don't you give us your next win total, Sully?
Well, I know this is one that you and me both love.
This is a consensus lock hammer smasher or something like that.
Carolina Panthers under 6. Makes all the sense in the world. I mean, you're playing the NFC West, you're playing the NFC North, you're playing the Broncos. Like I was saying with the New York Jets, you were a last place finisher last year, so you think you're going to get another last place team. You are, but it's the Russell Wilson Broncos, not the Drew Lock Broncos. So right. It is a totally different type of opponent.
What a dagger that is.
It's crazy. It's just one of those tough breaks for those teams that finish last, and you got to face those teams. So for me, the quarterback situation is still not at all figured out. They're probably, like, I think you've predicted this too. They're going to panic at the draft and probably bring in some quarterback. I
am driving the Panthers are going to poop their pants and panic at number 6 overall bandwagon. Yeah. I saw Josh Norris point out that they'll go offensive line. over quarterback, I still think they're going to panic. And by the way, they play the entire AFC North this year too.
And yes, and it's not going. That is just again an extremely tough schedule for a team that we have no idea what the quarterback situation is going to be like. And not only that, it's one of those teams too where they could be in a little bit of disarray. Wasn't there rumors? I think if we do these hot seat rankings, Matt Rule's going to be up there in terms of
He's
possibly getting.
He's the hottest seat on the
right. Is he not the hottest?
Yes. He will 100% be the favorite to be the first coach fired whenever those odds are released.
And whenever you have that type of thing looming over a franchise, it almost seems like a when rather than an if in those situations. And
Sully, we're already getting rumors that there is conflicting preferences on what to do with number 6 between the front office and the coaching staff. Like those are coming out for those aren't that's not something that gets leaked out when things are going well with the franchise. This is a frustrated franchise that got turned down by Carson Wentz. They tried to trade for Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz said, no, I will not waive my no trade clause to leave the place where they're trying to throw me out to go to Carolina. Like that's how bad that situation is, which is, he's like, I would rather go to Washington than Carolina. Like that's how bad things have gotten.
It's a bad situation. I think 6 is just unbelievably high for a team that could very well conceivably have the number 1 overall pick next year. To me, it just seems extremely low, not only from a quarterback standpoint, but like we were saying earlier, NFC West. I know the Seahawks got worse, obviously losing Russell Wilson, but you're still playing him with the Broncos. And the AFC North, the Bengals, the Ravens are going to be better. The Steelers, I think, are going to be even better. Again, and I think that they're going to be decent with Mitchell Trubisky. I don't know if they're going to, seriously contend, but they'll be a tough out, I think, with a competent quarterback. And then the who else? And the Cleveland Browns. That's another one where you have to factor in the Deshaun Watson part of it too. But I think that Jacoby Brissett could still beat this team, no problem, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at their games that they need to win, are one each against Atlanta and New Orleans. Like if we're building the path there's a path. We're building the path to getting over 6 or to getting to 6. One each against the Falcons and Saints. I think you got to beat the Browns with no Deshaun in Charlotte. I think you have to beat the Lions in Charlotte. So that's 4. And then at Giants, Steelers, and one of Cardinals or 49ers at home. Which is asking a lot for a team that won 5 games last year with 2 of their after starting 3-0, which is horrifically embarrassing. With 2 of those wins in the first 3 weeks against the Jets and the Texans, and one very bizarre week 2 blowout of the Saints. Matt Rule also went 5-11 in his first year. 1 win over the Falcons, a late win over Washington. I mean, it's just this team. It's just really hard to imagine this team winning 7 games.
And if you're telling me too that they're going to draft a quarterback in the first round, not only is this a quarterback class that isn't as highly touted as the years that we've seen in the past, but also, do we even trust Matt Rule to get this guy ready to go, or is he even going to be the guy ready to go? Or are we going to see a scenario where Sam Darnold starts the first 3 games and then they move on after they start losing? They always bungle these first round quarterbacks sometimes. It's very rare that you see them having a smooth sailing to begin the year there as well. So to me, it's just a bad situation no matter how you look at it. Schedule, quarterback, roster, head coach. It feels like a team that could very easily free fall into the number 1 overall pick next year. And so when you were looking at possibly winning 7 games, I just don't see it.
Oh my God. That's the thing. If the Panthers were smart at all, and they're not, they would say, okay, look, I think Tepper has buyer's remorse on Matt Rule. Panthers fans hate Matt Rule. I haven't met a Panthers fan who's high on Matt Rule at all. But if they were competent and they were actually being patient and actually building, actually doing this rebuild the way that they should have, and not accelerating it because of all these quarterbacks that became available, they would draft a left tackle at 6 and just play Sam Darnold for 17 games and submarine this season.
I mean, you're paying him $18 million anyways.
Yeah, no one's trading for him, obviously. You're on the hook for, it's really more like 19. But yeah, I mean, it's a ton of money. Submarine this season, and then get the number 1 pick next year and draft a quarterback. It's not, if you draft a left tackle and play Sam Darnold, you are going to win 4 games at the most.
Yeah.
So just dive bomb, into the crevasse, as Boston's Jack Donaghy said, into the crevasse. She didn't really have an accent on 30 Rock. Anywho, yeah, that's a consensus Alaskan lead pipe lock for me and Sully on the Panthers under. It actually opened at 7, which is just ridiculous. I will take as my next one. I think we have 2 each left. I will take the Ravens over. This is largely a injury regression play because the total is 9.5, I believe. Let me double check that the number hasn't moved yet. 9.5, just normal juice minus 110. The Ravens have as their, not an uneasy. No, they get to play the entire NFC South, which should be 3 wins for this Baltimore team against the Saints. That's in New Orleans, but the Panthers and the Falcons are coming to Baltimore. I mean, that's like absolute worst case. They go 2-2 against the NFC South. That division is not very good. They get the Jets in New York. I think that one's a win. They can go and beat the Patriots in New England. I mean, it's not a freebie, but I think they can do it. At Tampa is not exactly great, and they do have to host Denver, but they get the Jaguars as well and the Giants. So you get Jets, Jaguars, and Giants on your schedule, plus the NFC South, and you're telling me, like, after all those injuries with Lamar Jackson, with John Harbaugh, with a good offensive line, although Ronnie Stanley has some concerns, and with plenty of weapons and a decent defense, you're not going to get to 10 wins in a 17-game season? Like, I think, again, this is probably mispriced based on the fact that the Browns traded for Deshaun Watson, who the Ravens could get once or twice without next year, and because the Bengals went to the Super Bowl. But the Bengals are kind of due to take a little bit of a step back. I mean, just natural regression. The Steelers don't have a quarterback anymore. And we don't know what's going to happen with the Browns. Like, the Ravens might cruise over this by midseason.
And like you said, with the Cincinnati Bengals, historically, that team that loses the Super Bowl always kind of stumbles that following year. It's a natural type of regression, like you said. It's just, not that they're not going to be good, but there just seems to sometimes be that step back from these teams that lose that Super Bowl. And I'm with you too. I love the Ravens this year. I think that they are, again, you get 9.5 wins. I don't know if you can necessarily call them a sleeper or anything along those lines.
I think people are not high. Like, people are not talking about the Ravens as they're a mid-tier sleeper.
Like, I don't think it would surprise me at all if they won that division, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, they are getting back their almost entire secondary after losing Humphrey and Peters, both of their 2 corners. Who did they just get the safety in from New Orleans in free agency? Marcus Williams.
Yeah.
I mean, that they're retooling their secondary. They're getting all of their, basically their whole stable of running backs, a team that runs the football a tremendous amount. And J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, you have Lamar Jackson coming back. To me, this is a team that was
playing for a big contract, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a team that wants to, or it has all the talent in the world to be a legit contender. The only reason they weren't really in that position last year was because of these injuries. So not only are you getting those guys back, you've retooled in certain areas. You still have the NFL draft to add those other things around. I know the GM earlier this week was saying that he wants to add more depth to that secondary, but ultimately, this is a roster that is ready to go. I mean, I think that they could easily contend in the division, if not win it.
I think they should be the favorite to win the division, frankly.
Yeah.
I'll be betting them to win that. Just really quickly, look, like, here's the opponents. I'm gonna give them 3 home wins in the division. Just in 3, you can give 3 loss. However, just split the division, right? You go 3-3 in the division. So Bengals, Browns, Steelers at home. I'm not even gonna worry about playing the Bills at home because that's a tough game. Dolphins, Falcons, Panthers at home. I'm going to give them those 3 wins. That feels fair and easy. And that's 6 right there, Sully. I'm not even going to touch. And then they have 3 road games against the Jets, Jaguars, and Giants. Like, that's 9 wins right there. And it would be really surprising if they don't get it. So all you have to do is win one of Bills at home, at Patriots, at Saints, at Buccaneers, Broncos at home.
They're probably beating the Patriots. I mean, again, Matt,
beating the Saints on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the Patriots were a bad home team last year. Again, I saw it up close and personal. They were not great at Gillette Stadium last year. the Ravens can certainly go in there and win that football game. Absolutely.
I'm just saying, you look at the schedule, you think about what Lamar is playing for, you talk about regression, positive injury regression. This to me, I might like this one better than any of the other bets that I've actually put in. All right, what's your next one?
For me, Debo's going to like this one. Over 9 wins for the Philadelphia Eagles. You're talking about, again, an unbelievably easy schedule, sharp football, third easiest schedule in the NFL next year. You're obviously playing the NFC East. You're playing the NFC North and your AFC South opponents as well. I mean, that is a pretty nice one. And that Green Bay game that you're getting is at home. So at least you're not going to Lambeau. So, that's a feather in your cap that you could put in when you have Green Bay on the schedule. At least it's in your building, but everything else you should be able to contend with. You should be able to beat the Lions and the Bears. You should be in that with the Minnesota Vikings. You should be able to beat everybody minus the Buccaneers. Sorry, not the Buccaneers. Everybody minus maybe the Colts and the Titans in the AFC South, but I still would put you firmly in the discussion for those games. And so for me, that one, you could really chalk it up and say, all right, this is a team that has plenty of draft capital, is going to bring in some high talent. They're really banking on Jalen Hurts in year 2 or 3, whatever it is now for him. I like the Philadelphia Eagles here. I think that, again, they're in an easy division. The opponents, all that, I could see them going over this win total.
I'm just going to let Devo do the talking now.
I can't argue with that. I mean, I think the Eagles' number last year, their total wins might have been a little inflated because of the schedule. But then when you have a similar type schedule the year following, you can't really knock them for that. So I think it makes sense. The Eagles, 9-8 last year, and were clinched a playoff spot by week 18 and rested people and played Gardner Minshew in week 18. That's kind of the stage that they were at. So it could have been 10 wins last year. So I'm on board with it. If we're able to draft 2 impact players at this time a couple days ago, could have been 3 impact players. But I feel confident with the schedule, with the division, playing Carson Wentz twice a year, playing the
up high, down hard.
I maintain that one game Carson's going to throw 4 touchdowns and 350 yards against the Eagles, and then the other one he's going to throw 4 picks and 2 pick sixes. I think that's how the breakdown's going to go.
The 4 picks will come in Philly because he's got to walk by the Wentz statue.
Right, the full statue.
Excuse me. That's what he said to himself for years. It's a Wentz statue. Yeah, I think Jalen Reagor. I know people rip him. I actually think he's maybe could take a step forward. It's sort of the Tua Justin Herbert factor with Justin Jefferson for Reagor, whereas like he could take a step forward in his 3rd year. That wouldn't be crazy. Devontae Smith should have a improved season. We're talking about more reps with Hurts. You still have Goddard there. I think Miles Sanders is shifted to being underrated. People don't like him, but that offense looks like it should be good. Added Reddick, a lot of pieces, a lot of things to like about this team. You get the Bears on the road. Chicago looks terrible. You get Houston on the road. You get the Packers at home, which we talked about, but you also get the Jaguars, Saints, Steelers, and Titans, which feel like and the Vikings. Yeah, the Vikings. I say Vikings, and like the Vikings, Jaguars, Titans, Steelers, and Saints. I think on you're like, oh, Steelers at home, like that's a tough draw. I don't know that it is. I feel like those 5 games are very at the most toss-ups. Yeah, and definitely winnable for the Eagles. So if you get, let's say you go 3-2 in those, or even 4-1, I think the Eagles will come away with a positive record in the division because I don't think Washington's very good. The Giants have improved, but I'm not sure enough. And I think they could split with the Cowboys potentially. Get at Chicago and at Houston, and you're pretty close to that 9.
Yeah, right? You're knocking on the door.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I like that one. Yeah, I'm kind of like the Eagles this year. My final one. Is that your last one? Or do you have one more?
I got one more if you want it.
No, yeah. I've got the unless this is moved. I mentioned the Eagles are playing the Chicago Bears, and I will take the Bears under as well. Actually, I think it's down from 7 to 6.5 with the over juiced to -135. Obviously you'd rather have 7 than 6.5, but 6.5 plus money is kind of nice. Especially when I think that this number ends up closing closer to 6. The Bears are very clearly, I mean, like I don't think I can be signaling this anymore. I don't know why Ryan Wilson and John Breach didn't agree with me. Like I feel like they're saying, hey, we're rebuilding. When you trade Khalil Mack and let Akeem Hicks walk, and all of a sudden the best player on your defense, like, all right, look, let's take this roster. If somebody in the chat thinks we should add somebody to this, by all means, go for it. But I think you look at this roster and you say, all right, what building blocks do we have? So like, I'm not counting Robert Quinn as a building block. Like he's a good player, but he was drafted in 2012. Like he's an older veteran. Roquan Smith, Jalen Johnson. I'll accept Eddie Jackson, even though he had a down season last year. So that's 3 on defense. And then on offense, it's Justin Fields. And if you really want to force things, Cole Kmet and David Montgomery. Like those are this is not a good roster at all. I mean, right. Justin Fields, like Tevin Jenkins might be their starting left tackle. And maybe he's ready after missing some time his rookie season. I just have a hard time believing it. The wide receivers are Darnell Mooney, Byron Pringle, and Equanimeous St. Brown. Like, okay, have fun, Fields. This is just a bad team. I don't think it's a 7-win team.
No, I think you're right in the sense that it's a rebuilding team. Second-year quarterback, first-year head coach. They're just trying to figure out what they are. I mean, they're trying to figure out a foundation of what they have, a culture of what they have. It's a totally different type of team that they've seen a year ago. Again, this is why I think maybe some of these teams have higher win totals, just because Chicago could be, just like I was saying with the Panthers, they could be in the running for the first overall pick next year, just because of the way that roster is constructed.
Yeah, absolutely. They get out of division games, Washington at home, Philadelphia at home, Buffalo at home, Miami at home, at Dallas, at the Patriots, at the Giants, at the Jets, at the Falcons, Texans, and Niners at home. I'm using FB schedules because I find they use the helmets, which makes it just
there you go.
Makes it work in my brain. FBschedules.com. It's actually a great website. That's the best place to go. Yeah.
Falcons, they could probably, that's a game where you could be
Falcons, Texans, Jets, and Giants, they can definitely win. I mean, but like if those are your 4, you've got to beat the Lions once, which is totally possible. So we're talking like, all right, Washington at home is all right. That's a winnable game. We're gonna give them that. I don't think they're beating Philly at home, but I suppose it could be a winnable game. Miami potentially. I'm gonna say Miami and Washington at home. That's 2. I'm gonna give them 1 game against the Lions. That's 3. So that means to get over that, they would have to win Houston at home. That's what, 4?
Yep.
At Atlanta, at Jets, at Giants. So you have to win every single one of those games to get to 7.
They're not a talented enough team to do that.
Right.
You're asking way too much.
Like the Giants have a better, I don't know if Daniel Jones is it. I think the evidence is mounting against him, but the Giants have a much better roster right now, I think, than the Bears do.
Yeah.
But the Bears are rebooting, and that's okay. They don't have a first round pick, by the way. And they could end up going to like London to play the Packers. So the Bears, the Bears under is my last one. What's your final win total?
Colts over 9.5 for me. I've been on this podcast critical about the move for Matt Ryan, but that is more macro view. That is more, I'd rather you just find a building block guy that you can have for the foreseeable future, as opposed to another veteran that you're bringing in. That said, this veteran that they brought in is someone that can win games for them, no doubt. It's a clear improvement over Carson Wentz. It's a clear improvement from any quarterback that they've had basically for the last few years here, even with Philip Rivers. Sorry to take one for your boy there, Will.
It's not an improvement of Philip Rivers, and you're fired. I think it's pretty close to Rivers. And like, look, Rivers was really good and got him to the playoffs. Like they would sign in blood, in blue Colt blood right now to guarantee that they finish with the same record that they did with Rivers as they will with Matt Ryan.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. And again, you're looking at the 4th easiest schedule in the NFL, NFC East, AFC. I believe it's the AFC West that they're facing. So again, that's no easy task there. But you have the Texans twice, you have the Jaguars twice. I'm calling that 4 wins right there.
Yep.
I mean, you're playing.
probably safe to call it 3 wins, given the Jaguars.
Well, you never know.
They just haven't won. They haven't won in Jacksonville since like 2014. Yeah, I know. I agree. I think it should be.
I'm gonna say 4 wins. I feel like maybe they could turn the tides there. 4 wins there, and then you go on the at
How about
home.
this? I think 4 division wins. So you split with the Titans.
Sure.
And
yes.
then, so yeah,
sure.
4 division wins. Worst case.
4 division wins. Then you have the Vikings on the road, the Giants, the where is it? The Patriots, I believe that they'll be able to beat in Foxborough. Denver and the Raiders, in Dallas, you have some struggles with. Those are the road games that I think that might be issues for them. But also, other than that, I think that they could beat the Patriots. I think they could beat the Giants and the Vikings on the road fairly easily. And now you're talking about, what is that, 7-ish wins? And you still have some home games there against Philadelphia, Washington. If Pittsburgh, you could talk yourself into a few of those wins there. I mean, you're not going to probably beat Kansas City and Los Angeles Chargers, but you'd be in those games, or you'd be in that game with Los Angeles, maybe.
I don't think that they are definitely an underdog to the Chargers at home.
Yeah.
I think that might be a pick 'em, or maybe even Colts favored by 1 or 2, depending on when it is and how like Matt Ryan and the Colts offense has looked. The Chiefs are probably favored going in there, especially if it's early in the season. But like, what's crazy is this team, they're playing the AFC West, and their win total is still 9.5. Like, I think Vegas, that is a pretty respectful sign from Vegas about this team and about where they stand by adding a quarterback like Matt Ryan, who, I mean, I really think we look at these quarterbacks that have switched teams. I mean, like, aside from Carson Wentz, has anybody had a really bad season in the first year? I mean, there's a lot of motive. Like, when you go to a new job, this is the same for anybody. Like, when you go to a new job, there's an excitement, about change and about doing something different. And what, you can't be like, hey, what's up, Sully? Great to see you again on this Wednesday for the 30th week. And,
but not only that, Will,
I am excited about writing that story. Like, I'd love to give you 10,000 words on the Eagles Saints trade.
But not only is it an excitement about a new opportunity, you got to remember how he left Atlanta. It was, we are trying to replace you with Deshaun Watson.
Motivation.
There is clear motivation there to say, okay, I'm still that guy. I'm still that type of player, that type of quarterback that can play in this league and be that franchise guy. And so you not only get the excitement of going to a new place, a new challenge, but your old destination, you want to almost prove them wrong as well.
Yeah. Like Rivers, I mean, again, like Rivers is a good example too. Like, he switched teams and was clearly motivated to have a efficient and productive season in Indianapolis. And he did. Tom Brady switched teams and won the Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford switched teams and won the Super Bowl. I know those are really good teams they went to, but the Colts have a really good roster. Matt Ryan is going to be, and like somebody was like, are you gonna be able to learn the offense in time? He's like, dude, I've had like 12 coaches in Atlanta. Okay. And like 15 offensive coordinators. It's not going to be a problem. He's going to be, I really think the Colts are going to be and it's like in the AFC, everybody's like, oh, I don't know if, the AFC is so tough. How can they win? It's like, well, they get the AFC South, and that division is not very good. And the Titans are extremely reliable, and I don't think will fall apart by any stretch of the imagination. But Colts,
it's not out of the realm of possibility that like this could be the year that Tennessee takes that step back. They've kind of plateaued over recent years, I would say. Yeah. And the worm is, I don't know if it's fully turned. It hasn't fully turned, but it's starting to turn on Tannehill a little bit. I feel like people are starting to be like
5 already. Like,
and so that, things could break in 2022 with them. That's one more thing, and that leaves the door extremely wide open for Indianapolis.
34 this offseason, sorry.
Okay. Well, either way.
Yeah, but he's in his mid-30s.
Yeah.
I mean, he's an efficient quarterback, but it does feel like they're a little smoke and mirrors-y. And credit to Mike Vrabel. I think he's a really good coach who gets the most of the situation. Somebody points out in the chat too that the sports books probably haven't accounted for the 17-game season. I think that's 100% correct. Like, they don't, like the Chiefs should be 11.5 because of the 17-game season. Like, you're getting an extra shot at a win.
Yeah.
An extra game to win. Like, the loss doesn't, so I agree with that. I think even if it's hard to shade it though, because you can't just give it one more win or, one more game, and you don't really want to go the half game. It's difficult. So it's almost, I do think they're having a hard time adjusting to it. And that's why, especially right now, maybe there's some value on these teams before that schedule comes out. I would, I think I like all, we have 3 overs, 2 unders each. I think I like all 10 of them.
Yeah.
All 9 of them, I guess.
I think our locks though are Panthers and then Ravens.
Ravens for me.
Yeah.
I think I really talked myself into the Ravens.
Yeah.
And then I think that Colts over is a really good spot too.
Yeah.
Like that's with that division and just with their talent level, I think that's a good spot to go over. All right. That'll do it for the podcast. Broke down a bunch of win totals. Go get your bets in. Do it at Caesars. Use, I don't know if we have a promo code, but go to Caesars and do it. I mean, and in full disclosure, you should always shop around to try and find the best number. Like, I don't even think the Caesar himself would be offended by telling you to go get a better number somewhere else. But that's it for the show. Sully, thanks as always, buddy. For everybody who listened and watched, hit the like buttons, hit subscribe. For Sully, I'm Brinson. We will see you guys